So.
Hey.
Hey. I still want to get away from my standard hey. So you and I we've both DM'd things before.
Yeah, we're big time nerds in that way.
For those not in the know, I'm not talking about direct messages. I am talking about Dungeon Masters.
Freaking nerds DMing each other.
Yeah, we're just bragging that we know people, I guess. But one thing that happens to DMs all the time is you'll throw someone in a town and they'll, your players will go up to the bartender and be like, "What's your name?"
Yeah.
Great, give me a fake name right now. Who's behind that bar?
Razarg.
What kind of guy is he?
He's a half-orc. He's kind of burly. He's missing one arm. So he has to kind of get creative with polishing the glasses,
Yeah.
And he talks, I'll give him a real country accent. "Hey, name's Razarg. Come on in, sit down."
Oh, I like that. Razarg. I like Razarg. I'm considering a country accent for my next player character, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Ooh, yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
I like those because they're easy to do.
Yeah. We're intimately familiar with them, so it's pretty easy. My go-to method is just looking at the keyboard and picking a letter for it to start with.
All right, we are talking to a local noble.
Okay, a noble, okay. Her name is Nimora. She is half-elf, and she worked her way up to be a noble, so she's very proud of it. She thinks you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
A meritocratic noble. Got it. My character's looking at them askance.
Yeah, she came in the bar and she got lost. She did not mean to come to this bar. Okay, that was enough RP. All right. Sorry, we're big nerds.
That was great.
All right, what are we doing today?
Today we're going to answer some listener questions.
Fuck yeah.
We've got another bag of them. We didn't quite get to everything that was posed to us, so if you're wondering, what about mine by the end of this? Hey, we'll try to get to you eventually because we try to, we just kind of wait for the pile to build up a little bit and then take most of it.
Yeah. Okay, which one are we starting with? You want me to read this first one?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay. This is from Noah, and he says, "In your newest episode and many others, you discuss the abolition of the state apparatus." I think this was from a while back, so it was probably a different episode. "And it reminded me of a question I've been asking myself for a while now about how criminal offenses would be handled under a non-federalized system.
Okay.
Obviously, with the overthrow of capitalism, there will likely be a huge reduction in crime, but even with access to mental health infrastructure and less emotionally charged acts, I imagine there will still be some fashion of murder, violence, etc., whether it be for non-capitalist related things like love, lust, or otherwise. So what would stop each commune from enforcing their own arbitrary brand of justice?" Mm-hmm. He gives an example like chopping off a hand for stealing.
Do you know what the penalty is for stealing?
Oh, Jasmine didn't even know she had to pay.
The twist is she's actually from like a post-capitalist commune, and she's just like, pay?
Pay? Oh, that's great. Anyway, where, someone else might just do community service hours. So he was thinking, you want to hear his idea?
Yeah.
He was thinking about a voluntary union that agrees on a standard baseline of human rights, but without coercion. But he's worried about communes agreeing on this baseline or wanting to join in the first place.
Yeah.
But yeah, he wants to know what we think.
Sure. Yeah. No, this is an important topic. Broadly speaking, right? What would justice look like beyond capitalism? It's kind of hard to kind of figure out. In general, right, we're looking at the proles being in charge instead of the capitalists, the workers, the people. No longer the capitalists in charge, whatever we are going to, right? If we're doing a Marxist sort of state-run thing or anarcho-communism or however we're doing it, it'll be a different group in charge. And whatever legal system is going to be there, it won't be like above the people there to keep them under control like the system we have now, right? Which is just for the interests of the capitalists.
Yeah. This is a question, albeit posed much differently and much more aggressively usually. Which whenever you do talk about communism, someone you know, a more conservative person loves to ask, like, what happens if there's a shooter, you know? Like, what happens if someone gets a bomb? And you're like, why does your brain immediately go there? First of all, like, are you okay?
Yeah, if you start talking about abolishing the police or something, they'll do that, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just it is fascinating to me that mostly men jump to this situation right away.
Well, we're fed, you know, action movies. I don't know. It's, you're not like required to watch that if you're a man or something. Anyone can, but there's just a strong, in American culture anyway, there's this strong, like,
They're all Jack Bauer.
like Jack Bauer, like 24 style. Think about the possible chaos or unhinged, you know, situation that could happen. Think about the worst situation. I don't know.
Yes. But anyway, what will we do?
What would we do? So the big deal here is that, you know, working class interests would be at the forefront instead of the capitalist interests. So we're focusing on, like he mentions in the question here, kind of focusing on human needs, focusing on rehabilitation instead of retribution.
For sure.
And I think that Noah's kind of right that, like, there will be a huge reduction in crime, or at this point you're kind of more talking about just like harmful behaviors, you know, that's going to go down, right? I mean,
for sure.
If you're transitioning from socialism to communism, or you're just jumping straight anarcho, whatever you're doing, if you are taking care of people's material needs, right, people aren't going to be able to screw each other over with property, and they're not going to have an incentive to do so either.
Yeah, you don't need to steal because you have all your needs met.
Yeah. You're not going to be trying to put people in line in terms of drug laws or anything like that.
That too.
You know, if someone does have a substance abuse problem, then you'll be dealing with that, like with rehab and stuff. You'll have universal health care to help them deal with that, or with mental issues. That would also, you know, be covered under that. We're trying to help people. But I guess, you know, also like Noah said, you will still, you know, you're going to see the occasional murder. Someone's going to kill somebody.
Somebody's going to fuck somebody else's partner.
Yeah, things are going to happen. I don't want to say that that's like human nature.
I don't either. I think that's too far the other way.
Yeah, well, because looking at it and saying, well, oh, people are just, you know, bad. I think bad things will happen and people will do bad things sometimes. But I don't think that, like, humans are naturally this sort of greedy, evil thing.
Yeah, no, me either.
And I think that as leftists, we don't believe that. Like, I think we've said this before here, if you pull a boot out of a lake, it's going to be wet. And if you pull someone out of capitalist society, they're going to have all these things that society has taught them to have, these values.
Yeah, you know? I mean, definitely the first few gens going to be a little rough.
Yeah. I think Noah's interested in particular about how uniform society is going to apply, like, their brand of justice, right? One thing we do want to point out is that we don't know.
No idea.
And that's something I found very interesting whenever I'm researching this stuff, or I get curious about, like, how would we do this under communism? One of the things I find, especially from more kind of orthodox or like more hardline, like Marxist-Leninists or Maoists, or really, you know, grounded in theory people, they will say, you know what, it's completely useless to look at that. Predicting what's going to happen in communism, like, you don't know.
Yeah.
And they will kind of go on to say that's kind of utopianism and that's bad. You know, try to come up with the theory beforehand. You know, don't do that. And Marx wrote about that, and Engels wrote about that in our readings that we've done. Is they kind of say, yeah, the utopians thought they could dream it all up and make it happen, and that doesn't work.
That's a good point. I have a lot of utopian tendencies, so.
I guess I wouldn't go that far because it's fun to speculate too. Like, it's entertaining. I don't know. I guess I just mean, we don't know, but let's go ahead and speculate. Let's have fun. It will end up differently in different places, but hey, let's check it out. So, different ways to do this. If you're going like a state-run approach, right? You could just, if you have a worker state or whatever, you can just make that uniform throughout your nation.
That's true. That's pretty simple.
You could even, if you do that, like say, hey, you know, if this region wants to do it this way or whatever, determine it at that level. That's fine. But he's kind of approaching it more from maybe an ANCOM sort of sense.
Yeah, that's what I get the feeling too. Yeah.
So the voluntary union idea that Noah has, I think, kind of reminds me of something called communalism.
Ooh, what's that one again?
Well, it's from a guy named Murray Bookchin, and it's this idea of kind of like these loose federations really grounded in the local level. There's also a kind of a version of this almost called democratic confederalism.
Okay.
Which is by someone named Abdullah Öcalan.
Okay.
Both of these theories kind of have, I've read a little bit about them. I'm not an expert, but you have local communes.
Yeah.
Local kind of autonomous councils of people who kind of govern, anarcho-communism.
They do their own thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And these communes can link up together with other ones, but they're completely voluntary unions.
Okay.
You send like deputies that you can instantly recall. So if these deputies go over there and do something you don't like, get back here. And they decide with other deputies from this region, they decide for the whole kind of confederation, whatever that is, what the agreed upon human rights. He mentions kind of you don't want to be chopping people's hands off. Okay. Or you don't the punishment for this should not be torture or the death penalty or something. So you decide kind of what your overall confederation's baseline things are, and you go with that. In that situation, if one commune was, in this
eye for eye dystopian thing.
Yeah, they originally agreed to this, but then they decide, let's start, just really being harsh about things. Then the other ones could vote to say, hey, let's tell them, let's kind of tell them they can't do that, because here's the kind of breakdown is that one, communes, it's completely voluntary. So they could just be we don't want to do that.
Yeah, actually I'm out.
Also, in both of these systems, it's totally fine, since it's voluntary, for them to secede, for them to just be we don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
You're ultimately going to have a lot of variation, I think, within these communes. Now, ideally, I think one of our beliefs, I guess, is that in putting this in the hands of everyone, you'll end up with a more or less fair system just by virtue of giving everyone a say.
I mean, hopefully. Hopefully once everyone has a few therapy sessions and works out their aggression, they'll vote for humane options.
Yeah, that's ultimately what you would kind of have to rely on with this super non-coercive hierarchy. Yeah.
I think it's interesting because, I mean, if they came from a hyper-developed state system, then they would have they would already have some things that they share, I was just thinking okay, if you've got a whole bunch of communes, you still have to work together for things your transit system, and it is probably easier to work together on really big things like healthcare and stuff like that. So you're probably still going to need some form of cooperation with those things. So maybe that could be kind of used as some leverage of hey, we're going to cut off the trains that go to your town, I imagine there would be some shared, resources between communes.
You're right. Yeah. That's a very good point I hadn't even thought of that your sort of economic interdependence or whatever would still to some degree be there, right? Unless you really want to be going back to the land sort of.
Yeah. Unless they literally have replicators and they can just feed themselves and they don't give a shit. So maybe, I don't know.
True at that point. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's an awesome question to kind of look at is if you are kind of going that more commune route, then you probably are going to have a wide variety. Yeah. To wrap up there's going to be a lot of, variation if you're doing that approach. At least there's a possibility for a lot of variation, right? Like we said, there is that sort of interdependence or the incentive, I guess, for an alliance. So makes sense for there to be some sort of cooperation, and through that some sort of unity in terms of this is, if you're going to be a part of this group, this is what sort of rights you have to respect.
Yeah. I'm hoping we can get some of those. That'd be good. All right. Do you want to go to this next question?
Yeah, let's go to this next question. Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
This is from Juniper, who says, "Hi. I have ADHD and the attention span of a doorknob. Do you have any recommendations for how to study theory and pay attention?"
Oh, man. I want to preface that neither of us have ADHD or nor are experts in it.
True.
But so these are more just general study tips, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll go first. I learned about something the other day on Twitter called the reverse Pomodoro method.
Well, it sounds great.
Right? Have you heard of the Pomodoro method at all?
I have not, no.
So it's this thing where you set a timer and you work for like 25 minutes and then you take a break for 5 minutes and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And there's like apps for it. But the reverse of that is if you're having like a low functioning day, like for me, I would use this like if I'm having a bad like depression day or something. It's like you do whatever the fuck you want for 25 minutes and then you just spend 5 minutes like, okay, I'm going to like clean my room for 5 minutes.
Okay, I got you.
Basically, yeah, you just flip that shit.
Nice.
And that's kind of my whole philosophy on studying and doing things I don't super want to do is it's just to go really easy on myself and give myself way more time than I think I actually need. And then when I'm done, eat like some cake or something to reward myself.
That's important. Have those rewards, have kind of a treat, a positive reinforcement.
Yeah. This is a super basic tip, but working backwards from your deadline and doing the math to break it into chunks, always very helpful for me. I let myself go down a few rabbit holes if I'm researching, but I usually just try to open a new tab and save it for later. I'm not like you. I'm not as tempted by those as you are.
That's bad for me.
Yeah. As far as like actually reading itself, especially like theory or just heavier text, I take a lot of notes. I am very visual, so I underline, I highlight, I doodle, and the doodling kind of helps keep me motivated too, because I'm like, what if there's a funny joke I can make on the next page? Like, I'll keep going.
I love the doodles. They're great.
Thank you. If you're a Patreon, you can see them. They're ridiculous. And make your notes like your notes. Like mine are very casual. Like I'll be like, LOL, and like, fuck, and just like... just make them fun so that when you look over them, you'll remember, you know, or make them however you need to make them, I guess.
Yeah, your own style.
I'm also very verbal. So for me, if I'm prepping something for the podcast, like if I'm going to be kind of taking the lead on a discussion, I'll practice. I'll like go take a drive in my car and talk to myself. Also very good if you haven't had a therapy appointment in a while. Just pro tip.
Therapy in the modern world.
Oh, yeah. Or like I'll practice on Kyle or something. Be like, here, I'm going to talk to you about this. See if it makes sense.
Yeah, I do that with Abby. I'll try to teach her whatever.
You try to teach her communism.
Yeah, I try to teach. Yeah, it fails miserably, but.
Damn it. I had a question for you. I know you have your own study tips, but I want to get back into listening to audiobooks.
Nice.
I have Zinn's People's History of the United States on Audible.
Awesome.
I started reading it like in college or something, and then I dumped it for some reason.
Yeah.
And how do you take notes?
So I didn't when I listened to that. I did not take notes. And so consequently, like I remember it as kind of an experience and some things here and there. But yeah, if you're going to take notes on that, if it's in the car, it's hard. You really can't. I suppose you could pause and do like an audio memo or something with it. But if I'm just listening to it and like playing, a lot of times I'll just listen to it at the house or something, play video games.
Yeah.
Google Docs or just the Notes app or an old school journal. Like I just pause and make my note. Add the timestamp if I think it's something I want to go back and listen to. If you are using, you said this is on Audible. If you have like the Kindle book with it, like a lot of them have like a combo thing.
Oh, okay.
It will keep your place like between the two mediums. Then you can pull up the text version and like copy it and paste it over. You can like highlight and make a note that way in the Kindle app itself.
Oh, that's cool. I don't think I have that. That's good to know.
You know, maybe other apps have that feature as well.
Cool. What are your study tips?
Okay, so I want to start with my actual practice, like what I actually do.
I love this.
Because I do not practice what I will preach here in a second, but I want to show you what I actually do. So first off, I put it off till later. You know, future you is a champ. They can totally handle it.
For sure, for sure.
Procrastinate. That's one big sin of mine there. Also, every little tangent, get distracted by it. That's what I do. Yeah, now is a good time to read about the Habsburg dynasty or the War of the Seventh Coalition or whatever else. Like, I go down the rabbit holes and all of
gosh.
them. And I also make way too many notes. I just type up like walls of text. It makes me feel better. I don't think any of those are necessarily good, but it is something I do.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah. Actual advice. I kind of work best when I'm reading a piece of theory or a book or something, is reading through, kind of soaking up big chunks of it at once. Mm-hmm. So either reading through the whole thing if it's, short enough, or like a chapter of it or something, seeing how that all works together first before going back and being like, okay, this, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that.
That makes sense.
I also really think it helps to kind of let things soak. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're having trouble concentrating on it, sometimes getting up and pacing around, or just like waiting till later in the day and thinking about it. I like to see how how those thoughts that are kicking around in my head, kind of how I see that play out, I guess, in the world. And finally, in terms of reading things, I do like to listen to music while I'm doing so, instrumental music. I'm very auditory, so second people start singing lyrics, I start listening, and so that distracts me.
And then you start Googling the lyrics.
Yeah. But silence can also be, distracting to me too. So kind of just, I don't know, classical music, which is very
Cute.
like 60-year-old person, but...
Oh, that reminds me of another tip for mine is I will pair it with something I like, a chill playlist that I like, or like one time I took a bath and read theory in the bath. So you can do that if you want. Oh, the letting things soak note I liked, because I do that a lot. Like when I type up notes, like I kind of have a big wall of text problem too. Like I'll just be like, blah, like I call it word vomit. That's how I write my book. That's how I do all kinds of things. And then I leave it for like a whole day and come back, Same thing like when I make a painting or when I make a comic, like you got to know when to walk away.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I hope those helped.
Yeah, like we said, we don't have any unique insight to it. This is just kind of stuff that works for us.
Yeah, for sure.
Next, we have a question from Cameron.
Okay.
And I kind of wanted to give the introduction and then say what Cameron said, because it makes more sense that way.
Okay, yeah.
So it was about one of my notes from the Communist Manifesto episode.
That was episodes 2 and 3.
And the passage I was talking about was where Marx says, so this is Marx here, the condition for capital is wage labor. Wage labor rests exclusively on the competition between laborers. The advance of industry, whose involuntary promoter is the bourgeoisie, replaces the isolation of the laborers due to competition by the revolutionary combination due to association. The development of modern industry, therefore, cuts from under its feet the very foundation on which the bourgeoisie produces and appropriates products. What the bourgeoisie therefore produces above all are its own gravediggers. Its fall and the victory of the proletariat are equally inevitable.
And I'm glad I had previously learned what that meant. I forgot.
Yeah, no. So I initially summed it up by saying this, and this is what they had a question about. This is what we're saying. What I tried to summarize last episode, maybe in episode 1, I'm not sure. What I tried to summarize last episode, as Amazon and Google and all that get bigger and bigger, monopolize more and more things, crowd out competition in the pursuit of profit, they're also combining their workers. As they do that, employers can't keep wages as low because workers aren't competing with each other as much. They aren't undercutting each other. They aren't even teaming up to increase their wages. And as that happens, the bourgeoisie can't accumulate capital the way they used to, and the wheels come off. They've dug their own graves, as Marx puts it.
Interesting.
And so Cameron asked, so why would workers stop competing with each other? In low-skilled jobs, is there not always the risk or threat of being replaced by someone who is unemployed?
It's a good question because we talked about that. What do they call it? The mass of unemployed people or something? They had a fancier term.
The reserve army
there we
of
go.
Unemployed. Yeah. No. So this was a great question. Cameron is correct here. And honestly, I think that I just kind of was not correct in my previous interpretation.
Got slammed.
Yeah, no, I was looking back through it and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't think that. I don't think I had it right before. This is called the Reserve Army of Labor. It's basically the pool of unemployed or underemployed or kind of precariously employed people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they keep wages low because there's always that threat that they could be brought in. It's also expanding all the time because, of automation.
Oh, yeah.
Improving technology, which the capitalists are required to pursue, right, to survive. That was one of Engels' big things we were reading about. So, wages and thus capitalism is not just going to be defeated by reducing competition among workers and, like, messing up the wage thing. Like, that's not how it'll work. So I kind of got that wrong, I guess.
Okay.
But a better explanation of what Marx means is like this. So wage labor is based on competition, right? And capitalism advancing is going to replace that competition with all the isolated workers everywhere. And it's going to bring them together into more of a teamwork with more combined workers, right? The organization of the like factory or the restaurant or whatever it is, the bakery, as we were saying in our episode. And then that combination, as that unfolds, workers are going to start realizing their class interests more. So it's not about the wage mechanism. It's about like them realizing that they are a class and getting more revolutionary that way, organizing.
Okay.
So Marx just kind of lays it out that way. Remember, Lenin in What Is to Be Done said that wasn't, enough, that they wouldn't make that leap without, a vanguard party doing the thing. So leftists disagree definitely on what that will lead to. But yeah.
Interesting.
That was the revision I wanted to make to,
all right,
to my notes.
Well, thank you, Cameron.
Yes. Thanks.
Next, this one's from Carol. I just wanted to read it real quick.
Okay.
It just says, it's 2 sentences. I'm listening to your podcast.
Nice.
You are so wrong about libertarianism.
Ouch. Okay, well.
End of email.
Hey, I mean, maybe we said something that was... What did we say about libertarianism? Do you remember?
I don't know. We probably just shat on it.
That sounds like us.
It sounds like something I would do.
Now, libertarianism, I guess, does have a healthy skepticism of the bourgeois state.
I mean, yeah, they're not all wrong, but they're mostly wrong. I just love it. I love the lack of detail. It's very good.
Carol, if you do want to tell us more specifically how we could kind of address the shortcomings of our knowledge, we're welcome to it.
Sure.
Ever more conciliatory, I guess I am.
Yeah, right. I'm not so nice. All right. Next is from Chris, and he asks about the general strike in India. It was funny. I remember we released our Kerala episode like the week the strike was happening.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because we didn't really cover it at all. We were just like, let's ignore it. So yeah, let's talk about it. What happened?
Chris asked to kind of shed some more light on kind of what happened, on what general strikes are, how they fit into communist goals, maybe why we aren't hearing as much about this.
Yeah, I only saw it like twice on Instagram.
Yeah, I didn't see much either. I did see like an article in Jacobin about it, and kind of did some research to when we were researching that. But I mean, one big reason, of course, is just it's a strike. You don't really want the corporate media isn't that interested in telling you about.
Hey, you could just not go to work.
Right? Especially in the world's most populous multi-party democracy, like not necessarily what you want to tell people about. So yeah, what happened in that situation? So it was originally there was a general strike in India, and it started November 26, 2020. So this is actually before when we were recording that general strike started. It involved around 250 million people.
That's so many fucking people.
Yeah, that's like almost, that's
almost all of the states, right?
Yeah, that's like 70, 80 short of the United States, yeah.
Jesus.
And they had some demands, the unions and the people taking part in the strike issued demands of a monthly income to all families earning less than a certain, like the income tax threshold or whatever, a free monthly grain ration, 200 guaranteed days of work and better wages. This is modifying a previous bill, which was only focused on like the countryside and only had 100 days. They wanted to improve that.
Okay.
Changes in the labor code. They also wanted to repeal this bad law about farming, about agriculture, that was like too corporate friendly, basically.
Okay.
They wanted to end privatization of public sector corporations, stop forcing government workers to retire early, and also a universal pension.
Okay. Those are good things, I think.
Yeah. So that strike went on for a little while, and then it was followed up by the farmers' protest, which is still kind of going on.
Okay.
This isn't so much of a work stoppage or anything. It's more just like a demonstration.
Yeah.
It's still been massive. And so on December 8th is the one you're thinking of that came out like as we were doing that episode.
Okay.
That was when they were going to have a Barat Band, which is like a big demonstration.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be like nationwide, like all of India.
Cool.
We're going to do this. And it's similar to a general strike. Everyone just goes out and demonstrates and says like, screw this. They just shut everything down. Mm-hmm. Like sort of a form of civil disobedience in that way. I think they ended up like not calling it off necessarily, but like scaling it down. They didn't want to, which is silly because it's the whole point of the thing is to get in people's way. But they didn't want to get in people's way, so they did it like for only part of the day.
Bummer.
But yeah, no, the farmers' protest is still going on. It's like kind of varied in intensity. But it's focused on those anti-farmer laws. The government has kind of been saying like they want to negotiate maybe, but I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to like give in too much.
Yeah.
To the demands there.
Yeah.
To the other part of Chris's question, let's get into the general strike because that's super cool.
Dude, I would love that.
So the general strike, I think we've talked a little bit about it before. Mm-hmm. It's where a bunch of workers refuse to work, not just at one work site or in one company, but in general.
Fuck yeah.
It can be like on a community scale, a town, a city, state, or region. It can be an entire industry. It could be an entire nation.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be wild because like it can even be what they refer to as the general strike.
What is that?
This would be a social revolution where the people end up taking over the economy. They end up throwing the bosses out. They end up in charge.
That sounds rad.
Yeah, not everybody agrees that can happen. Different types of leftists, Marxists, for example, or Marxist-Leninists or whatever, they'll say like the general strike, it's a work stoppage. Mm-hmm. You do like work does have to happen. People do have to like produce things. So at some point it's going to fail.
Yeah, because the rich people have enough resources to hoard to wait them out. Is that it?
That's kind of their argument. Unless the working class is like ready to take control and do it themselves during a general strike. And so, those groups might say they won't get there or whatever.
Yeah.
But anarchist-leaning communists, and especially anarcho-syndicalists, the ones who want to do things by labor unions,
Yeah.
they see this as like the big revolutionary means, the at least practice for it until, the general strike. It kind of is sharpening your knives until you're ready.
I think it's a good idea. I don't know. Like, I agree you would have to do a lot of organizing beforehand in order to make sure people are taken care of. Mm-hmm. But if you did enough of that, I think it's got some legs, man. I think it's really, it's very threatening without actually having to shoot people, which I like.
Yeah, that's true. It's, there also, I guess, conversely is a danger to threatening the system too much.
That's fine.
You end up
getting shot.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I see what the Marxists are saying, sort of. Not a lot of labor unions are teaching you like how to literally take over for yourself. Mm-hmm. But if it is a militant revolutionary union, then they're actually preparing for that. Like we have seen general strikes in the past where workers do take over their workplaces or their communities and manage it themselves on a smaller scale, whether that's a work site or a city.
Cool.
And we've even seen that during general strikes here in the United States in our history.
Wait, when did that happen?
They had a general strike in Seattle
Oh.
In 1919.
That's a long time ago. Okay.
Yeah, more than 65,000 workers were out there. They just like got all the unions in the town. They had demanded like a pay increase. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny. Their boss, one of the corporations, like a federally backed corporation set up for World War I, mm-hmm. like sent a message to the metal factory, like bosses. And said, you better not give these guys a pay increase or we're pulling out. But he messed up and sent it instead of to the bosses, he sent it to the Metal Trades Council, like the union.
Oh.
And they were like, fuck you, we're going on strike.
That's amazing.
So they had a big general strike and like they shut down the city for days. Cool. And they had set up like all these institutions to kind of like, provide for people and stuff. Mm-hmm. They still kind of like ran the city. They had like volunteer unarmed patrols and stuff. They rocked it until, the cops came in, set up machine guns and went to town.
What the fuck?
So yeah, no, I mean, we have examples of people being able to do that on a wider scale too, right? Like mm-hmm. I kind of doubt like you said, tons of organization to actually get that to be pulled off on a whole wide scale. But I mean, if the conditions are right, like in the Spanish Civil War, the country's unraveling, and you had Catalonia mm-hmm. able to pull this off. Revolution in Catalonia, they set up like an anarchist government there.
Fuck yeah.
Anarchist government, an anarchist commune sort of thing,
Yeah.
People took control of the city.
That's pretty cool.
And they ran that, and that was like basically de facto through the labor unions there that did that.
That's awesome.
A general strike that basically turned into a government. So it's, it's totally possible.
It's a thing.
Yeah. General strike is super dope. We should do it.
I love it.
We should be planning for it now instead of recording a podcast, but hey.
Probably.
Is what it is.
We're shitheads. Okay. This next one. This is not a question. It is a fun fact from one of our listeners, Anthony.
All right.
He says, I'm listening to episode 17. That is, I believe, the early history of socialist parties in the United States. And he says that we were talking about Milwaukee, which is where he lives. And he tells us that they used to have a socialist mayor, Frank Ziedler.
Nice. What did you look into Frank Ziedler any?
I did. He seemed pretty cool.
Tell me about him.
Yeah. So this guy, he was a member of Socialist Party of America.
Cool. That's first off, really cool.
First off, very cool. Let's see. He says he got into socialism because of like the philosophy of it. Like he's very into peace and equal distribution of economic goods and cooperation.
I like that.
I love this quote for him. Like he's listing all the things he likes about it. And at the end, he goes, "Those were pretty good ideas." Just like, mm-hmm.
That's great. Yeah, that's a good summary. Just
good button.
That's a review blurb on the back of like the Communist
pretty
Manifesto
good.
Or something. Those are pretty good ideas.
5 stars. He read a lot of like Eugene Debs and then some other guy called Norman Thomas, who I did not have time to look into, but maybe he's cool. I don't know.
Norman Thomas ran for president for the Socialist Party of America 6 times.
Jesus.
He was a Presbyterian minister, very big time pacifist, but also socialist. So an interesting combo there.
Oh, that makes sense because this guy was also kind of like that. He was a Lutheran.
Okay.
He was kind of like that religious sort of socialist.
Yeah, it's an interesting combo in our times, like to think about. But like, if you think about the kind of, there's always been a radical element to American religion, I guess. There's been branches of it. Mm-hmm. If you think about in the Civil War time, some of the big time abolitionist leaders and everything came from this, religious background and stuff.
That's true.
Anti-war activists as well coming from. So yeah, it makes sense.
It's a thing. He wasn't big into like straight up communism. Didn't want to associate himself with like the USSR or anything.
That's rude. All right, Ziedler. We can still team up on the things we agree on.
One thing I found that I loved. Have you ever heard of the Red Falcons?
Is that a soccer team or that No. Sounds cool?
It does sound cool though. So it was a children's socialist group.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so it was basically like an alternative to Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts because they saw those as like being too religious and too like conservative and like kind of have a military hierarchy.
Yeah.
And apparently it originated in Germany and they eventually set up branches in other countries and he was part of it at one point. And I'm like, I want to send my child to Red Falcons.
Oh, that's so cool. I bet they don't have it anymore.
I don't think they do. Anyway, so this guy's career.
Yeah.
In 1938, was elected Milwaukee County Surveyor as he ran as part of the Progressive Party, which was working with Socialist Party of America at the time.
Okay, yeah. We talked about them, I think.
I think we did. 1941, he got onto the Board of School Directors. It was a 6-way race, and he got 14% of the vote.
Nice. That's the way to do it, man.
Just get 5 of your buddies to run and say don't try very hard.
More opponents, more people to beat.
So his brother Carl was mayor in 1940, but then Carl enlisted in World War II in the Navy, and he died like on active duty.
Oh, man.
So like this guy, it made Frank more popular basically, so he was able to run for mayor. And he ran in 1948 and was elected out of 14 candidates. Busy year.
Oh, my gosh. What is...
Can you imagine?
How does this happen? This is great.
This is before Google. Like, you would just have to read about these 14 motherfuckers.
Well, but on the other hand, you're getting the newspaper delivered to you every day or something.
That's
you know?
true. That's true.
You do have a way to find out. Okay, so did he run openly as a socialist, like in his first campaign, or did he like?
I believe so. Yeah.
By the way, I'm a socialist.
By the way, no, he was just like straight up socialist. Like he won and he was reelected twice. He declined for a third term for health reasons. What's really interesting is that like this is in the 50s and Wisconsin senator was fucking Joseph McCarthy.
Whoa.
So like that's fun.
Oh man, some extremes there on one side anyway.
Right. But he did pretty good. So overall, during his term, Milwaukee really grew. It like nearly doubled in size. They had a big like industrial boom. Mm-hmm. They were annexing municipalities and stuff. I thought this was interesting. He really didn't like the suburbs.
Yeah.
There's this quote: "The city consults with suburban governments, but we do not believe they have reason for existing."
Whoa, put him on blast. Okay.
God, he sounds like me.
I love it. What even are the suburbs? Why are they there?
Yeah, fuck that. But he did some cool shit. He established the state's first educational TV station, upgraded parks. He bought the city's first garbage trucks. Like, I guess 1948. Yeah, I guess that's when that would happen.
I
don't know.
I know precious little about the history of garbage
history.
collection.
Come on.
But it does sound interesting. You know, I'll probably be reading about it.
Probably. He built fire stations, fixed up roads, constructed low-income and veterans' houses, and he insisted on those housing units to be integrated, which was a big deal at the time.
Ooh, whoa, yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of got in some trouble. So the black population in Milwaukee tripled during the 1950s. And obviously some racist people didn't like that.
What? I thought they always reacted fine to that.
That's their favorite, right? Mm-hmm. No, so apparently political enemies spread a rumor that Ziedler had put up billboards in the South asking black people to move north.
What? Oh, they went out and accused him of that?
Yeah, that's what they thought. They were basically just trying to use the fact that there were more black people moving into town, like, as a point against him.
Ziedler's fault, yeah.
Yeah.
Old school QAnon rumors or whatever, like old school fake news.
Basically, yeah. He was a supporter of the civil rights movement and was like open about that, which got him in trouble, but I'm glad he did it.
Yeah.
Obviously.
That's cool though that you were mentioning kind of all the reforms he did in addition to the civil rights thing, the civil rights stance. He's kind of doing all these kind of local small improvement sort of thing. Yeah.
What I was reading, he kind of had that sewer socialism stripe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So after he took a few gigs, but eventually he was part of the Socialist Party. I guess they reformed in the 70s and he became the national chair.
Okay.
He did run for president a couple times.
All right, Frank Ziedler.
I think maybe just once. 1976. He got 6,038 votes.
Oof.
2,500 of which were from Milwaukee County.
Hey, representing.
His hometown really liked him, so good job. But his platform was very cool. His platform included protecting the environment, ending the arms race, addressing world hunger, passing the ERA, empowering workers to sit on corporate boards of directors, and prioritizing mass transit over cars.
That's cool. Yeah, he would have had my vote.
Yeah, I would have voted for this dude for sure. He also wrote some stuff, obviously some stuff on governing and socialism, some Milwaukee history, also poetry and modern Shakespeare fanfic. So,
dude, that's a wild little tangent, but hey.
And children's stories.
Were they like socialist poems, or was it just...
I didn't do that much digging, sorry.
It's cool.
So yeah.
I need to read about garbage truck history as well as Ziegler's poems.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find them somewhere.
They're probably great. That's cool though.
He sounds like he was a really cool dude.
The most recent socialist mayor of any major American city. Milwaukee. Shout out.
I put a grimace emoji next to that, like, oh, we need to get another one of those in there.
We really do. That's a while back, man.
Right?
I mean, Bernie was mayor of Burlington, Vermont, but Burlington, Vermont's not very major, so.
Yeah.
Like, you would think they'd be able to pull that shit off in, like, San Francisco or something liberal, right?
There's too many tech
Too many
bros
business
there.
people, yeah.
I'll read the next one.
Okay.
This is from Gabby, and she says, recently in quarantine, I've been meditating a lot more. I go to online Zoom classes, and I thoroughly enjoy the sessions, and because they're an hour long, I can really get into it. And a few nights ago, I had what is called a realization, which is basically a spiritual awakening.
All right.
Congrats, Gabby. Afterwards, she felt very unproductive, and it was strange. Like she didn't want to do any of her schoolwork. At first, she thought it was really weird, but she did some research and found that other people felt the same way. Essentially, when you have a deep spiritual awakening, you question everything, including the work you are doing. You ask yourself, is the work I'm doing meaningful? Do I enjoy it? Should I give it my all?
Okay.
And she writes, I realized that spiritual awakenings, like the one I had, could really dismantle the capitalist system.
Ooh, okay.
If the masses all decide that they don't want to work boring jobs and make money for their already rich bosses, it would be devastating for the corporate world.
True.
I mean,
True.
We just talked about strikes, man. That would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
It may be good for us, bad for them. She writes that meditation has become more and more of a trend, and some workplaces even recommend it to their employees so they can release stress and be more productive. And she finds that very interesting because, like, the idea of using meditation to be a better worker when it could actually do the opposite.
Yeah.
Also notes that, a lot of meditation can make you want a life where you have the leisure to meditate for multiple hours a day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what do you think about this?
The first thing that jumped out to me was this comparison of, that companies do definitely, it's more and more of a trend of encouraging.
Mine does it.
Yeah, encouraging wellness, encouraging meditation, this mindfulness or whatever. I mean, I think their incentive is it's a cheap alternative to actually providing healthcare.
I
Just
agree.
tell them do meditation.
I totally agree.
But the cool thing that Gabby mentioned here is that difference between just a little bit of it to be a productive worker, right, versus a lot of it when you do have this breakthrough and then you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Mm-hmm. It reminded me of like how people, they microdose with LSD.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, or like mushrooms too, and weed.
Yeah, like this is supposed to increase your productivity or something. And business type of people will be like, oh, this is great. This is what really unlocks your potential or whatever. Whereas if you take it as intended, or, like you said, shrooms or whatever else, if you take that like to actually experience like a psychoactive effect or something, usually that's kind of like a shortcut kind of to this sort of realization, this sort of breakthrough,
For sure.
That does make you question like what you're doing and everything in the same way, kind of that meditation can, you can kind of misuse it, I guess, to just like produce more for the capitalists.
For sure. So this made me think of too, the second shift. Have you heard of that term?
Is this, yes, I've heard of this.
So this was popular in like second wave feminism. Mm-hmm. And it was the idea of like, okay, yeah, you go to work and then when you come home, guess what? You get to do more work.
Yeah. Domestic labor.
Yeah.
Unpaid.
Yeah. So this made me think of one of the reasons I think we are kept so busy is so we don't have time to think about how shitty things are. You're just trying to fucking survive every day.
Mm-hmm. How many fucking leftist or revolutionary, stirrings and podcasts and posts and whatever else started during the beginning of the pandemic where
absolutely
you all of a sudden have more time on it. No wonder they think it's a crisis that they got to make sure to get us back to work.
Yeah, we're sitting here thinking too much, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we actually had, a 4-hour workday or something, we would have the time to sit around and think about like how shitty this is and realize that it's like, wow, this is very unjust and I shouldn't have to do this. And we've talked about this before, but capitalism basically, it's incentivized to barely keep you alive.
Mm-hmm.
Just enough misery that you are ground down so where you don't have the energy to revolt, but not so much that you will definitely revolt.
Yeah, because the whole point is to increase your profit. And the way you're getting your profit in the first place is by buying, wage labor, is by extracting from people their labor power and paying them enough to keep them alive. If you don't, from the capitalist point of view, if they don't do it, someone else is going to do it better and they're out. So only the people who are actually, exploiting, and we don't mean like sweatshops necessarily, because there's ways to get more productivity out of your workers and still seem like you're being nice, I guess. But if they don't do it, someone else is going to. It's like they're imperative.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And that kind of brings me to my next point, which is just the overall commodification of wellness culture. It's so gross. Just the idea of meditation and yoga and all these very ancient and traditional practices being just turned around and sold for a profit and used for corporate bullshit. My job definitely offers this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, they're not doing it just so they can be nice. They are doing it so they can, one, good PR, seem like they're doing nice things. Mm-hmm. And two, they're hoping that you feel slightly better so you work harder.
Yeah, that's ultimately what's in it for them. What do you think about the potential of this to dismantle the capital system, as Gabby mentions here, if everyone were able to have this sort of an experience? That was one of the big things in the 60s and stuff, was this whole what was the phrase?
Tune in.
Turn on, tune in, drop out.
Yeah.
We get everybody, and they just if they break through, if they figure it out, we can all just return to being kind of chill. I don't know.
Here's the plan. We're going to mail a whole bunch of LSD to everybody.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. NSA.
We would never do that.
Sure.
Well, I don't know. It sounds like a hard way to get there because
you don't have enough control over what people will actually get to.
Yeah, I don't know. And even doing this through meditation, there's just big chunks of people who don't believe in it, don't have the time for it.
I think that's my biggest thing is the time. I think this question at the heart, for me at least, just brought up the fact that we are overworked for a reason. They don't want us to have time.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree that more people. It would be great if more people could get to this sort of point. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, man, and you can, it's not spiritual, maybe, but seeing getting a different lens to view the world through, I think is one big thing that I've gotten through this podcast and doing more research into actual theory, figuring out what my views are more, has given me I guess a different perspective, or I don't know, improved in that way. It's, a more sense of purpose in that regard.
You've grown.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. We talked about this in our queer theory episode. I only started kind of thinking about gender once I had time for it in lockdown. That's what happens when you have time, is you actually figure out who you are.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, great question, Gabby.
Hey, I got a really, really good question from you from a super hot and cool, smart listener. Their name's Christine.
Is this from you, actually?
This is...
Okay,
it's actually from me. This has just been on my notes app for a month.
Yeah. All right. Great. Let's do it.
All right. So this very cool hot person asks, do landlords artificially drive up the price of housing? if we didn't have someone owning a bajillion houses, wouldn't houses be overall cheaper because they're more available?
The short answer, great question, first of all.
Thank you.
The short answer, the direct answer to your question is yes, landlords do drive up the price of housing because it's, more demand. Mm-hmm. So yes, to a point, housing should end up cheaper if it were more available with landlords out of the picture, right?
Okay.
One approach to doing that this is kind of like social democratic approach would be like, hey, let's, you can't rent stuff out to people anymore.
Fuck yeah.
You just can't do the landlord thing.
Can you imagine?
Well, what would you have to do? So like at that point, apartments, there's no way to do it besides that, I guess, unless you're selling them. So you could leave the landlords in charge of it and just say you have to sell the units
by this date.
Yeah. Or you could also say we're going to like buy them from you. Like you could nationalize it or do that at the local level, whatever. Landlords would probably start selling off like single family rental homes, just selling those on the market. And that's where you would kind of see that price kind of decrease because there's so many of them now out on the market. I think this would kind of, this would help with like the homeless population. We've talked about this before, but there's so many vacant units out there.
Yeah.
So this would help with, providing social housing, decommodifying housing, and starting to provide it for people. If you're slowly, gradually doing this, you could charge like an upkeep fee based on your income or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a big deal, but I mean,
can you imagine?
Yeah, this would be crazy.
Like you have people on Twitter now be like, "My son's a landlord. That's his only income." And I'm like, "Well, tell him to get another fucking job, man. I don't know what to tell you. Like that's not a skill."
Now, this is not to say that like landlords that manage their own properties do some labor.
Some things, but mostly isn't it just calling people to do things, I feel like?
Pretty much.
I guess you could have a handyman / landlord.
If you're on a small enough scale, it could be, that you are the guy, I guess. You know? But, and some, people kind of manage their own like rental properties, I guess. Very small scale, but yeah, you could just always find another job. I mean, people get automated out of jobs all the time,
Yeah, get over it, brah.
I think one of the things that when you ask this, like the price going down, remember that it's only going to go down to a certain point.
Oh, yeah. And then they're going to stop selling them, basically?
Pretty much, yeah. Because, I mean, we already have a ton of housing supply that's
true.
out there vacant. The updated numbers for that, because we mentioned those in our landlord episode, remember?
Yeah.
The updated numbers, the latest estimate anyway, from Q3 of 2020, 14,246,000 vacant units.
Oh, my God.
This is not an unusually high number. This is the lowest number since 2002.
Jesus.
How
many homeless people?
More than 500,000, 568,715.
It wouldn't even be a chunk.
Nope.
You get one landlord out of like, I don't want to do the math on that. Very few landlords would have to take a loss to house all the homeless people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You could easily do that. My point, I guess, is that we do have plenty of housing already. So when you do kind of increase the supply by cutting out the landlords, you are going to, lower the price some, but to a point, right? At a certain point, they're going to stop. They're going to, on their end, go on strike and not sell you the houses and stuff.
God,
and not
that's
sell
crazy.
You anything.
That's so nuts.
That's that thing we were reading about in Marx and in Engels is the crisis isn't about scarcity. It's about when you can't pay off the capitalists when they can't get their profit. They take their ball and go home.
God, just straight up greed. Gross.
Yeah, but also required. It's not just a personal failing. Remember, we can't have nice capitalism. True. They have to do that.
That's true. Okay. Bummer.
I mean, it would help, though. We talked about that earlier scenario. Like, that's very unlikely given our political situation. But
oh, for sure.
It could help.
All right. Our next question, we actually just got this one last night. It's from Richard. This question really, it hit me a certain way. Let's read it.
All right.
First off, he gives us some great compliments, which is very nice.
We love it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Richard.
And he brings up, he says, Christine is clearly very intelligent. Thank you, Richard.
I agree.
And plays a role that helps people identify with the confusion anyone new to this body of work will have. But this denigrating your own intelligence to do it, well, it bothers me. I understand your point, but surely there's a way to help the audience and acknowledge they might feel like they're not smart enough. But it's just that long ago they talked differently, and their circle used an especially diffident way. I don't know what that word means. I guess fancy, of talking, because they were German philosophers. The new reader and Christine are not lacking in intelligence. They are lacking in experience with the material is all. Can you explain that without playing into misogynistic stereotypes of smart man explains to stupid woman?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. This email hit me in a certain way.
Yeah.
First off, I want to give a quick caveat. I don't think I've ever explicitly announced it or whatever on the podcast, but I don't identify as a woman anymore. I identify as non-binary. I use they, them pronouns. Yeah. So for future reference.
We rarely refer to each other in pronouns on the show. So
yeah. So it doesn't come up much.
Fair enough.
But I understand how someone could take that away from this show. And I want to include this question because I don't want people to take that away from this show.
Yeah, for sure.
Please don't think that's what we're doing.
And I don't think he means that we are doing that, but that it can be, because he does say playing into kind of the stereotype. So I guess it feeds it maybe.
Yeah, and I don't want to come across as defensive or any of that shit. I think this is a good point to bring up. So
yeah, I guess we do kind of engage in I'm dumb or something like that, right? I couldn't figure this out. This was too smart for me or something.
Yeah, no, I mean I did it while reading this question, and lots in our earlier questions today. I guess it's a little bit of a shtick. I know I'm smart. Yeah. I know this about myself. Both you and I did very well, academically in high school and college. And that's just kind of our thing.
We're nerds.
I think part of it is I'm a very casual speaker. That's just how I talk.
And I am the opposite, I guess.
Yeah, you're very flowery.
People quite frequently are they will comment on what is that word or something, or I don't know. I guess it's just one of the things I tend to do. Why use a few words when many words will get the point across more loquaciously,
Meanwhile, I write LOL in my notes and stuff because that's how I communicate with people. My whole job as a designer, as a cartoonist, is to distill concepts into really short, fast, easy reads.
Yeah.
One of the ways this podcast started was I made a comic about the healthcare system and you helped on it. And a lot of it was me cutting your text, being this is too long, can't fit this in a panel. No one's going to get that.
Yep.
and that's just what I do. I'm just I just want to get to the point,
And I want to explore the details.
So yeah, I think some of it is maybe generational too. I think that's just kind of millennial humor is very what's the word?
Self-deprecating.
Self-deprecating. That's the word.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's just a thing that we do. I don't actually believe it. I think it's just I would way rather admit that I don't know something than pretend that I do.
For sure.
Because I think people don't do that enough. It'd be no, I straight up don't know what this is. Can you tell me?
I think we both do that, is kind of admit, nope, no idea what that is. But,
no clue. Tell me.
But yeah, and just kind of our dynamic, I guess, we're casual with each other. Sibling dynamic, sort of. We could do one thing if we did want to change tone or, change the bit a little bit. I had one student last year who at the beginning of the year, she'd always be like, oh, I'm dumb or whatever. Would say this a lot. And no, you're not. You're in pre-AP. Your work is great. You're not dumb. But she would just say this about stuff. That was just what she would say. And I, at some point, was just so you're banned from saying that in here. You cannot say that anymore.
Oh, man.
And that was just the rule.
Yeah.
And so she didn't get to say it for the rest of the year.
Wow.
I don't know if it improved her confidence any or not, but we could do it.
I mean, I feel like I'm already way too confident.
So you do this as a way to compensate for that and reel yourself in?
I think so. I was talking to my husband about this last night because, I had a bee in my bonnet and I was I think that I'm smart. I guess I think that I'm very smart.
Intelligent than most people.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm snooty about things. It's just a thing about me. I'm I think I'm hot shit most of the time. And that was not always the case. Took a lot of therapy to get there.
Now that I guess can help listeners for kind of get in terms of your standpoint of intelligence. But I do think Richard has a point bringing up the part directly about like understanding theory.
Oh, for sure.
You know, because
Yeah.
like I don't want the audience to think that when you're going through this and you're like, what the hell is this guy saying? Yeah, it's not on you. Like he says, like they're German philosophy. This is first of all translated from another language and translated from another language in the 1800s. That's a good point, is that when you are reading theory on your own, you shouldn't feel stupid. You shouldn't feel inadequate when you come across passages, chapters even, where you're just like, what is this? I don't get it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I don't want any of our listeners to feel that way. I hope that we never come across that way. I think in a lot of ways, that's why we have this podcast too, is to basically translate some of this stuff. Because it's like, I just don't have time to, totally digest all these wordy theory things.
Yeah. And I
You
present
do.
a finished product or a sort of finished product whenever I'm saying, okay, so what he means here.
Yeah, you had to translate it too.
Yeah, this usually is not just like, oh, I got it. Like sometimes it is, but most oftentimes it's like, what even is this part? Like I'm pulling it apart. One good resource for me is the glossary in the Marxists.org website. They have like a glossary with terms and stuff. They go into more detail to kind of flesh things out that you're wondering about. But yeah, man, I've got 20 tabs open on 2 different windows, trying to figure this out whenever I'm translating it. So
Yeah. It's a lot to go through. And I definitely have the easy job on this podcast, which is just like, what the fuck does that mean? So.
But yeah, to sum it up, I guess.
I'm smart, is the
Smart.
point.
Yeah, you're smart, brilliant. I am here to make sure we don't get too high a ratings on Apple Podcasts. And
Oh my gosh. No, not a thing. No, people love you. As far as like the smart man and like stupid woman thing, I definitely have seen like, women and people who are assigned female at birth do lean into that stereotype sometimes.
yeah,
I think a lot of it is a defense mechanism, and like, we're taught that is like a way to seem attractive and stuff like that. So like,
just likable as a person.
likable for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. But I'm not into that. I do it as a joke. I do it as just like a way to be relatable and just like, because we've all done that where we're just like, I don't even know what the fuck that's saying. Like,
Yeah,
we've all been there.
a great input there, I think, from
For sure.
Richard to help clarify for our audience where we're coming from.
Oh, I also want to point out, like, there's lots of different kinds of intelligence. I think I'd kick your ass on emotional intelligence.
Yeah, probably. What even is covered in emotional intelligence?
I don't know.
Is
Just
this like how to comfort people when they're sad? I'm
That's
not good
part
at
of
that. Okay. I'm not good at that.
shit. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Knowing what to do in different social situations. And then also like being able to identify your own emotions. Like, I feel bad today. Why is that? And like digging into that. It's therapy.
Nah, I don't got that. I can help I can give advice, but I don't like do too much introspection about my emotions unless I don't know. Usually not. No.
It's crazy.
So
I'm just a bag of emotions. It's good and bad. But yeah, and I also don't think you have to be smart. Like we talk a lot about how like your labor shouldn't define you. I also think your intelligence shouldn't define you. Like, it's fine. You're still a person. You still are a good person.
that's
Hopefully.
true.
Unless you're a bad person and you're dumb.
That's true. We have a very dumb cat.
I love him.
Even like by cats are, not as smart as us. That's fair. But
yeah.
he's dumb compared to other cats, but we still love him a whole lot.
He's my favorite, in fact. He's my godson.
But humans can, be as smart or dumb as you want. Just be you. Do your thing.
Do your thing. What an uplifting note to end on.
Do your thing. Overthrow capitalism. Imperialism sucks.
Yeah. Sounds great. I'm into it.
Okay, so hopefully these questions that we've answered here have given you a little something to think about.
Yeah.
Hopefully you learned something that you didn't know before. Maybe about the Red Falcons.
I still want that so badly.
Yeah, they're cool. But yeah, what do we want to learn about next week, or what do we want to discuss?
Well, we've been teasing this for a long time. I think we're finally at a point where we're ready.
Yeah.
We've been reading Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano, and I think we should talk about it.
Yeah, this is going to be different than our previous reading kind of episodes because we're not taking this passage by passage, or that we would have to start
the podcast.
Yeah, we just have to start a side podcast for that.
It'd be a good one. Like, someone should do that.
Oh yeah, but we'll be covering just kind of, I guess, our overall impressions and takeaways and commentary about more about like the themes or interesting things that came, right?
Yeah, I think so. I've got a lot of feelings about this book. This is a book that's like, I feel like it's just lodged underneath my skin, and now I just walk around with it all the time. It's great.
That's good and bad.
It's good and bad because it's also a bummer of a book. So, yeah.
All right. So, yeah, we'll be covering that, talking about that next week.
All right. It's a long one, so get to read. We've been teasing this for a long time. Guys, come on. Get it together.
Just read a summary somewhere.
It's fine. We'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
You don't have to read it.
We'll give you the TLDR version.
In the meantime, you can find us on the internet. We are on Twitter at teachcommunism, on Instagram at teachmecommunism. You can send us an email, teachmecommunism@gmail.com. You can send us questions for a future Q&A if you didn't get your question in on here, or if you just thought of a cool one. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps people find the show, so please do that. Rate and review. We are on YouTube. If you prefer to listen to podcasts that way, look us up there.
Yeah.
And finally, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/teachmecommunism. You can donate $5 a month and you get access to all of our notes for each episode. Most of the time, they're mostly Grady's notes. Sometimes I have notes.
This time you have notes. You have notes in this.
Yeah.
We shared notes this time.
We shared. That was weird.
Yeah.
I could see you typing in there, and I was like, what are you doing here? Loser. And we are going to be donating the proceeds from this Patreon to a local mutual aid fund. And we are happy to announce we have finally picked one. We're going to be donating to Feed the People Dallas. I mean, the name kind of explains it. They feed the people.
Yeah.
It's Black-led, women-led.
Mutual aid organization, not charity.
Just know that money's not like lining our capitalist pockets or anything.
No. Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Well, thanks for going through these listener questions. I like when we do these because I've mentioned this. I read a lot of advice columns, so this makes me feel like I'm cool.
You get to be an advice columnist in this?
Yeah. I do that on my Instagram sometimes, so it's fun. I like pretending I know things and knowing things because I'm smart.
Yes, you are. And I like researching random things. So
good.
It works.
You know what sucks about this whole smart conversation? In my notes for Open Veins, I started doing this thing. Well, I found myself constantly writing summaries, and I would just write Christine's dummy summary TM in front of them and highlight it a certain color so I'd be able to scan. So now I have to rename that.
Accessible summary.
Christine's summary for the people.
For the people's summary.
The people's summry.
Yeah.
We did it.
People's summary. Yeah.
We workshopped that. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you. Well, we won't see you. That's not how podcasts work.
You guys can tune in next week to.
That's why you do the outro.
Us. Yeah. Yeah. I would be messing up the same way trying to do the social thing. I think we have a Twitter . So yeah, guys, you can tune in next week for another episode of Teach Me Communism, where the class struggle is always in session.
Keep it sleazy.
Bye.